Cats in the Middle Ages were generally disapproved of, and regarded as, at best, useful pests and, at worst, agents of Satan, owing to the medieval church and its association of the cat with evil. Before Christianity's widespread acceptance, cats were considered valuable members of society and were even worshipped in some cultures. The life of a cat in the Middle Ages differed significantly from that of a dog, owing primarily to its association with witchcraft, darkness, and the devil. In the ancient world, the cat was regarded highly by cultures as diverse as China, Egypt, and Rome, but by the 13th century in Europe, it had long lost its former status and was generally tolerated for its practical use in curbing vermin but not often valued as a pet. The cat lost its former position through the efforts of the medieval church, which encouraged the association of the cat with devils and darkness as part of their long-standing agenda of demonizing pagan faiths, rituals, and values. Once the cat was associated with Satan, it was regularly tortured and killed either to ward off bad luck, as a sign of devotion to Christ, or as an integral part of rituals involving alluromancy, using cats to predict the future. Cats were condemned by popes and massacred by entire villages and would not regain even half their former status until the Age of Enlightenment in the 18th century. The Victorian age of the 19th century would see the cat's full restoration in status. At the same time, however, medieval Christians found the cat useful for pest control and as a means to supernatural insight. Rats and mice and other vermin, it was observed, were nicely controlled by a cat or two in the house, and merchants and ships' crews considered them beneficial as well in protecting grain shipments, or other cargo, in transport or storage. The practice of alluromancy, by which one could predict the future by observing a cat's movements, also made the cat a little more appreciated. For the most part, alluromancy only involved watching a cat whose behavior was thought to be able to predict the weather, an unexpected guest at the door, and other such things. Alluromancy took a decidedly nasty turn in a ritual known as the taghairm, practiced in Scotland throughout the Middle Ages and up through the 16th century. A person would take the cat and roast it alive over an open flame, turning it on a spit. The cat would scream in agony, and this would summon the devil to protect one of his own. The devil would plead with the person to end the cat's suffering, but the person would hold out until the devil had promised to fulfill a certain request, often some prediction of the future, at which time the cat would be put out of its misery. The cat was further linked with the demonic through the work of the writer Walter Map, who claimed that the religious movement of the Potterines, who were seeking reforms in the Catholic Church, whom he closely associated with the heretical sect of the Cathars, worshipped the cat as part of their dark rites. Walter Map reports how those Christians who had fallen into sin and error in joining the Potterines but who had since returned to the true faith, gave this report of a ritual regularly observed. Walter Map's story, corroborated nowhere else and possibly satirical, became so widespread and often repeated that it seems to have factored into the papal bull which condemned cats. Pope Gregory IX, in response to growing reports of heresy throughout Europe, sent the Inquisitor Conrad von Marburg to Germany to root out heretics by whatever means he felt necessary. Conrad sent the Pope back a report of insidious rites enacted, which sounds quite similar to Walter Map's earlier account of the cat ritual, only with the addition of a frog to the service. Pope Gregory IX responded by issuing the bull Vox in Rama in 1233, which denounced cats, especially black cats, as evil and in league with Satan. Conrad specifically accused the German noble Henry III, Count of Sayn, of participating in these rituals, but Henry was able to clear his name before a tribunal and retain his position. Conrad wound up, mysteriously murdered shortly afterward. The account Conrad gave Pope Gregory IX could not be corroborated by any other inquisitor or anyone else at all, but the concept of the cat as demonic was further ingrained in the public consciousness after 1233. Again, as with the Galinthia Sterncat tale cited earlier, it did not matter how many people could have, or even would have, been able to read Gregory's Vox in Rama. What mattered was the Church's stand on cats, which would have been absorbed by people through Sunday sermons and simple conversation, filtering down from the higher levels of the Church to the congregations in cities and villages. The bull was hardly widespread to begin with, having only been issued to Henry III, and so its impact could only have been felt indirectly. Holmgren's observation of the lady and cat in her castle is accurate, as evident from the house records of Lady Eleanor of Montfort, also known as Eleanor of England, who kept a cat for pest control but also seems to have cared for it as a pet. Lady Eleanor, powerful enough to control, maintain, and finally negotiate the surrender of Dover Castle, had nothing to fear from accusations of witchcraft, but the same could not be said for the women of more modest means in the villages and cities. Of all those accused of witchcraft in Europe in the Middle Ages, 80% were women, and the charge almost always ended in the woman's death. Although the most popular image is of an alleged witch burning at the stake, it was far more common to tie the condemned in a sack with her cat and throw both into a river. The outbreak of the bubonic plague in 1348 has often been blamed on a widespread massacre of cats following Pope Gregory IX in Rome, but this theory is untenable, as that was only one occurrence of the plague among many. The plague had been killing Europeans long before 1233. Even so, there seems no reason to argue that a decrease in the cat population, before and after the papal bull, would increase in mice and rats, and it has been established that there was such a decrease before 1348. Even if that were not so, the incidence of the plague from 1233 to 1348 could be traced to larger numbers of parasite-carrying rodents who were allowed to thrive in the absence of a large cat population. The people of the Middle Ages had no idea that the plague was caused by the bacterium pestis. This remained unknown until 1894 and accepted the Church's opinion that it was sent by God as a punishment for sin. Cats continued to be vilified and killed because people viewed them through the Church's lens as evil and worthless. Desmond Morris cites the continued persecution of cats throughout the Middle Ages and into the Renaissance, noting how, as late as 1658, Edward Topsell, in his serious work on natural history, the familiars of witches do most ordinarily appear in the shape of cats, which is an argument that this beast is dangerous to soul and body. The cat would continue to be seen this way until the Age of Enlightenment in the 18th century. The Protestant Reformation broke the power hold of the Church over people's lives and allowed for greater freedom of thought. Although, as always, there were people like Edward Topsell who clung to earlier beliefs, people were now free to question the Church's views on life in general and cats in particular. The spirit of the Enlightenment encouraged people to keep cats as pets simply for the joy of companionship, and this trend would become more commonplace during the Victorian Age, when Queen Victoria returned the cat to the status it had enjoyed in ancient Egypt. When the Rosette Stone was deciphered in 1822, it opened up Egyptian culture to the world. Previously, hieroglyphics were thought to be some arcane ornamentation, but, once it was understood to be a language, Egyptian civilization came into sharper focus and drew worldwide attention. Stories of fantastic finds in ancient tombs made headlines in England and around the world, and a number of these reference Bastet and the Egyptian love of cats. Victoria's interest in Egypt led her to adopt 2 blue Persians, and she acquired a reputation as a breeder of show cats. As Victoria was a popular monarch, the press reported on her interests, and those interests came to be shared by others who now wanted to have cats of their own. Victoria's efforts contributed to the cat resuming its ancient place in human society. Her love of cats was noted in America by the popular periodical Godey's Lady's Book, published by Louis A. Godey of Philadelphia between 1830 to 1878. In 1836, the writer Sarah Josepha Hale joined Godey's editorial staff and began writing pieces extolling the virtues of the cat and the joys of cat ownership. The popular author Mark Twain, among many others, added to the momentum by writing and lecturing on the sublime joys of the cat as companion, and so, by the end of the 19th century, the medieval concept of the cat as Satan's instrument had been replaced by that of the feline friend and treasured family member, so familiar to cat lovers in the present day as well as those of the ancient world. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more videos.